But the gauze that hung down over the open coffin moved. It twitched. Except for Mary Alice, we all saw it. The reporter sat bolt right up. Mrs. Wilcox made a little sound, then nothing. Then the gauze rippled as if a hand had passed across it from the other side. And in one place it wrinkled into a wad as if somebody had snagged it. As if a feeble hand had reached up from the coffin depths in one last desperate attempt to live before the dirt was shoveled in. Every hair on my head stood up. "Nah," Mrs. Wilcox said, strangling. She pulled back in her chair and her hat went forward. "Nah." The reporter had his chair arms in a death grip. "Sweet mother," but Grandma rocketed out of her chair. "Whoa, shotgun," she bellowed. "You had your time, boy. You didn't get no more." She galloped out of the room faster than I could believe. The reporter was riveted. Mrs. Wilcox was sinking fast. Quicker than it takes to tell, Grandma was back, and already raised to her shoulder was a 12-gauge Winchester from behind the wood box. She swung it wildly around the room, skimming Mrs. Wilcox's hat, and took aim at the gauze that draped the yawning coffin, and then she squeezed off around. I thought that sound would bring the house down around us. I couldn't hear right for a week. Grandma roared out, "Rest in peace, you old..." And then she let fly with another barrel. The reporter came out of the chair and whipped completely around in a circle. Beer bottles went everywhere. The straight route to the front door was in Grandma's line of fire, and he didn't have the presence of mind to realize she'd already discharged both barrels. He went to a side window head first, leaving his hat and his notebook behind, which he feared more, the living dead or Grandma's aim. He didn't tarry to tell. Mrs. Wilcox was on her feet hollering, "The dead is walking, and Mrs. Dowdall's gunning for me." She cut and run out the door and into the night. What's happening? What is happening? When the screen door snapped to behind her, silence fell. Mary Alice hadn't moved. Remember, she's asleep on the rug. The first explosion had blasted her awake, but she naturally thought Grandma had killed her, so she didn't bother to budge. She says the whole experience gave her nightmares for years after. A burned powder haze hung in the room, cutting the smell of shotgun Cheatham. The white gauze was black rags now. Grandma had blown the lid clear off the coffin. She'd have blown out all 3 windows in the bay, except they were open. As it was, she pitted her woodwork bad and topped the snowball bush outside. But apart from scattered shot, she hadn't disfigured Shotgun Cheatham any more than he already was. Grandma stood there, savoring the silence. Then she turned towards the kitchen with the 12-gauge loose in her hand. "Time you kids was in bed," she said as she trundled past us. Apart from Grandma herself, I was the only one who'd seen her big old snaggle-toothed tomcat streak out of the window, out of the coffin, across the windowsill when she let fire. And I suppose she seen him climb in, which gave her the idea. It was the cat sitting smug on Shotgun Cheatham's breathless chest, who'd batted at the gauze the way a cat will. And he sure lit out the way he'd come with Grandma, fired just over his ragged ears, as he probably used up 8 lives already. The cat in the coffin gave Grandma Dowdall her chance. She didn't seem to have any time for Effie Wilcox, whose tongue flapped at both ends, but she had even less for newspaper reporters who think their business is theirs, your business. Courtesy of the cat, she'd fired it around, so to speak, in the direction of each. Though she didn't gloat, she looked satisfied. It certainly fleshed out her reputation and gave people new reason to leave her in peace. The story of Shotgun Cheatham's last night above ground kept the coffee pot cafe fully engaged for the rest of our visit that summer. It was a story that grew in telling in each one of those little towns where there's always time to ponder all the different kinds of truth. This is a good story. I love it. I'm hoping you enjoy it. Have a great afternoon. Bye for now.